Did I get you? It's okay, we're just waiting on Mr. Harris.
Put the pressure on. Yes, if anybody late tonight, it's because of me.
All right, are we ready?
Isn't it a rule that the last person?
No, no, actually, I got that plan tonight. Already. So we are reconvening from closed session. We're coming to open session, and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Ellis, for the last time.
Oh, poignancy.
With gusto.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's never been done so well. Ready? Okay.
She's done it? Yeah.
Have you done that before?
I think she has.
Okay. All right, that takes us to item number 5, adoption and approval of the agenda. 5.1, approval of the agenda for the December 11th, 2018 meeting.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes. 6.1, approval of the minutes of the November 13th, 2018
So moved.
minutes. Second. So we have a correction to them. So could you amend? We have a correction to the, what item was it? Kind of an important one, only because the vote was incorrect.
What was that?
The warrants register for the last minutes has me down as recusing,
No, I did. Not
I
sure.
know you
Yeah,
did,
he did, it was, yeah.
and she did, but
Yeah,
I did not.
as it, 12.2.2 as it currently reads, the recuse on that was,
The 3 of us, but it was only the 2 of them.
right, so it should reflect that
Michael and
Mr.
you.
Ballard
Just me and Pete.
and Ms. Ellis.
So could you amend that?
Sherry's never seen a warrant sheet.
You'll sign off on it later too.
All right, so I need to amend that motion?
So amended.
Second? Second.
Actually, wait, I don't know if we can because we would.
Oh, you can't,
No,
you
Can't. So moved.
second,
From
right? Okay, so Frank is gonna make the amended motion, she's gonna second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
But
can't. All right, well, we
Well, you can do the minutes.
vote on the minutes.
The minutes, just not the amended motion because
Okay,
the
right.
recusal. All right, got that straight. Item
Yeah.
7, it appears we may have a few people in the room for item 7. Special recognitions, reports, and presentations, 7.1, Students of the Month, December 2018, Students of the Month, and Students of the Semester, 2018, for Petaluma Accelerated Charter. So let me go up here and look at the list. This is the fun part.
You know these people?
All right. Let's see, why don't we go ahead and start, why don't we go ahead and start with PACS? Let the PACS students come on down. I'm sorry, ma'am, but,
Are you authorized to be up here?
So, principals and parents, feel free to come take pictures and videotape and all of that. Okay, so who can call up first? You got them both here? Okay, who do you want to talk about first? Okay, so Mira, I'm gonna have you come over here. Okay, so you're gonna announce his name.
Kobe Brown.
First, you can tell us who you are.
I'm Xander Boger.
You're gonna tell them.
I'm
You're talking
Xander
Board of
Boger.
Education. And where are you from?
I'm from PACS, Petaluma Accelerated Charter School. I'm in 7th grade.
And this is?
That's Kobe Brown.
And this is where we clap? And turn you around right here in front of the camera. We're gonna smile nice and big so your parents can watch this forever and ever and ever. Take it away.
Kobe's gleeful personality is infectious to anyone who is around him. His participation in the classroom is always purposeful and thought-provoking. Kobe's desire to do well in school has allowed him to overcome any barriers he may face while keeping solid grades. Outside of school, Kobe serves volunteer hours at the Friends of the Petaluma River to help our community see the importance of land stewardship. While doing a great job at balancing schoolwork, Kobe has participated in the PACS volleyball team as well as in a current participant and in the robotics elective class. Kobe's past teachers report that he is always smiling and excited about what he is being taught. Kobe stood out among his peers with a laid-back yet studious attitude. PACS is grateful to have an opportunity to teach a student with Kobe's dedication and positive approach to learning.
Congratulations, Coach.
Yes, my mom and dad.
Good, please stand up, Mom and Dad. And next.
Mira Bruslow.
Over here.
Mira is a very eager and willing student. She has a passion for all subjects and clearly shines through her 4.0 GPA. She's one who self-advocates for her learning and isn't bothered by the extra time or steps it may take to understand a topic. Mira strives to be involved in the community by serving volunteer hours at the art docent program. Mira is a valued student in the PACS leadership class and has taken many roles in the drama class and glee club. Her presence on campus is always positive, and we can count on her to be a helping hand or a friend to anyone in need. Mira's past teachers express that she is an exceptional student who always went above and beyond to produce work worthy of a student much older than herself. Mira's all-around attitude is one that stands out in the middle of the school campus for being reliable, dedicated, and kind. We're so thankful to have Mira as a student at PACS.
Yes, my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother.
Just them on the camera.
Yeah.
All right, how about Kenilworth Junior High? Come on down. Who would you like to call?
Hannah.
So we're gonna call Hannah Lentz. Are you here? There we go, clap. Come on over here. Look right there, nice and pretty. Big smiles.
Okay. My name is Katie Hancock, and I'm an 8th grade leadership student at Kenworth. Kenworth Junior High School is proud to introduce our December Student of the Month, Hannah Lentz. Hannah was chosen Student of the Month by her team of teachers because she is truly one of Kenworth's brightest and most creative students. During Hannah's time as a student at Kenworth, she has excelled in scheduled classes that include advanced English and accelerated math. Imaginative, creative, funny, and hardworking are just a few of the superlatives used by Hannah's family and teachers to describe her. Miss Bradley, who has Hannah in 2 of her classes, shared that Hannah is an enthusiastic and disciplined student in both advanced English and KTV. She can be counted on to bring creativity and insight to her written work, and she is a seasoned movie producer in KTV. She works hard, respects her teachers and classmates, and embodies the life skills that we value at Kenworth. Miss Maneras, Hannah's accelerated math teacher, enthusiastically added that Hannah is a very focused and hardworking student in math class. She puts a great deal of effort into each assignment, always trying to do the best she can. Although Hannah is sometimes quiet, she has grown to be a great team partner that works well with her peers. While Hannah excels in all of her classes, she shared that English is one of her favorite subjects. During this November's National Writing Novel Month, Hannah began writing her fantasy alien survival novel based on characters she created in 6th grade. Impressively, Hannah has written well over 10,000 words as her novel continues to take shape. When Hannah is not in school, she enjoys creating concepts for video games and has been working on developing a game based on her novel. Hannah is also an avid reader of fantasy novels, a video gamer, and also enjoys watching anime. After high school, Hannah would like to attend the California School for the Arts and study animation. Hannah's mom, Jennifer, added, "Hannah is just the coolest kid there is. I wish I could crawl around her ring. She is really funny, humorous, and just a very warm person. We are very proud of her. Congratulations, Hannah."
Hannah, do you have anybody with you tonight? Friends, family? Look at Dad's like, come on, it's my kid. All right, next. Kyle. Could it possibly be you? Come on down.
Kenworth is also proud to introduce another of our December Student Months, Kyle Spiller. Kyle has been chosen Student of the Month by his team of teachers because he is an outstanding student, athlete, and citizen. Kyle is the kind of person and student any school would be proud to have. Kyle's grades have been steadily improving throughout the year, and impressively, he is currently earning straight A's. Miss Bradley, Kyle's Kenworth television class instructor, shared her praise of Kyle. He is an outstanding student in the KTV class. Kyle learns new jobs quickly, and he takes the initiative to help other students who are learning new jobs. He has mastered the Big Bag TriCaster and does a great job producing the daily news show. His patience and initiative make him a great role model for other students. Mr. Ryder, Kyle's math teacher, enthusiastically added, "Kyle is a great student and young man. In class, he always comes in with a smile and an upbeat attitude. Students in the class know that they can ask him for help, and he will do everything in class to help them. If I have a question in class, I know that I can count on him to give an answer, even if he is unsure about it." Not only is Kyle a great citizen and student, but he is also a great athlete. Kyle has shined in both Petaluma's youth baseball and football programs and is a valuable member of the Colts track team. Kyle's favorite sport is football, and he has been a member of the Petaluma Panthers for the last 3 years. At the conclusion of this football season, Kyle was chosen to represent the Panthers in an area Pop Warner All-Star game. Not only did Kyle's team win their All-Star game, but Kyle was also a key contributor to his team's winning effort by intercepting a pass. After high school, Kyle would like to attend college at either Stanford or Clemson, where he would love to continue playing football. Kyle's dad, Walter, added, "Kyle has always taken his academics and his athletics seriously. Kyle strives to be the best person he can be on and off the field. Kyle has a kind heart and makes others around him happy. Kyle has exceeded our expectations of him and is well on his way to becoming a successful young man. We could not be more proud of Kyle. Congratulations, Kyle."
Maybe it's the front row, because I could tell by the firm brow when she was videotaping to make sure she got it. You go ahead and check. Is this your grandmother too?
Oh, yeah,
Great
and
grandma.
my grandmother.
All right, Petaluma Junior High, come on down.
Hi, I'm Jordan Beardsley, and I'm a 7th grade leadership student at Petaluma Junior High. Petaluma Junior High School is proud to present Evan Frost as one of our December 2018 Students of the Month.
I'm looking for the Frost family. I don't see them. Where? No? Yes? No? Okay, so we're gonna hold off on this one until next time. Okay.
We are pleased to present Casey Sullivan as one of our December 2018 Students of the Month.
We got Casey. All right. Petaluma Junior High, what happened? Principal said it. What happened?
Thanks for getting in.
All right. Well, we're not going to have you read them, only so their families can be present and they can be here. Okay. She's searching her email right now.
Yeah, she's great.
Casey plays volleyball and has a game tonight.
There you go. Well, we will definitely repeat those so that they can come and be present. We don't want to do what happened here. Casa Grande, come on down.
Casa Grande is pleased to present the student of the month of December is Robert Stake. Robert Zager has taken numerous AP and honor courses throughout his academic career at Casa Grande High School in order to challenge himself academically. In addition to his academic pursuits, Robert played 2 seasons on the Casa Grande soccer team and played on the varsity tennis team for 3 years. Robert has also consistently volunteered in the Petaluma community through coaching soccer for the Petaluma Youth Soccer League. Furthermore, Robert seeks to open himself up to the new perspectives as well as being closer to his Hispanic culture. Last year, he had the opportunity to help students with disabilities in Paraguay, which assisted him in furthering one of his personal desires. Robert's future academic goal is to pursue a degree in computer science and is applying to schools within California and in New York, where he hopes to eventually live. His pursuits for a degree in computer science represent his passions in life, and he believes the educational foundation he has received at Casa Grande has prepared him for the academic rigors for college. Robert's interest in computer science is derived from his interest in mathematics, as he hopes to specialize within the exciting field of artificial intelligence. So, congratulations, Robert.
Going to the camera?
Yeah.
Our next student of the month of Casa Grande presents is Lance Sunshine. Lance Sunshine is a fun-loving student who spends the time he has outside of homework doing all sorts of activities. He likes to play Ultimate. He is a captain of the CJHS Ultimate Frisbee team, and he loves to go see movies in theaters. As a full-time geek, he'll drop anything to watch a movie that says Star Wars or Marvel. He's also loved to read books for his whole life. But because he reads a lot of words before he hears them spoken out loud, he mispronounced words like relative and hard for use. He's been taking dance lessons for over 15 years, which means he was only 2 years old when his mother decided he was too loud to be kept at home all the time. He's the president of the band council and has played flute for almost 7 years. He likes going to church even if the rest of the family is busy, and got baptized in November. He wants to major in physics in college so he can find a career somewhere in the field of astrophysics. And he's dedicated for who knows what reason to learning how to ride a unicycle before he leaves college. Congratulations, Lance.
All right. Petaluma High. Come on down.
So I'm Jorge Villalobos, ASB Vice President and Simon Spirit Captain. I'd like to start off by catching up with our Students of the Month by bringing up Griffin Epstein, Student of the Month for November.
Big smiles. Back up, you're tall. There you go.
Griffin is a senior at Petaluma High School where he has been involved in a variety of leadership positions in multiple classes, clubs, and sports. He is a lead producer of Petaluma High's student-run TV station, Trojan Life, including producing a daily sports segment for the last 3 years. He also directs and anchors live streams and other coverage of many Petaluma High sports events for Trojan Life. Griffin is the co-founder and former co-president of Petaluma High's Junior State of America, JSA, chapter and nonpartisan political activism, awareness, and debate club. Now taking on a statewide roles, Griffin is currently the Lieutenant Governor of North California JSA. He is also the sports editor of Petaluma High's newspaper, the Trojan Tribune, a senior leader and 4-year runner on the cross-country team, and a 4-year player on the varsity boys tennis team. Academically, Griffin has done very well in a wide array of AP and honors classes and is an AP honors student with distinction. Griffin is planning to attend Indiana University in Bloomington next fall to major in media. He hopes to become a sports play-by-play announcer. Griffin credits his success to the excellent opportunities that were available to him at Petaluma High, along with his teachers and parents for helping guide and support him through his pursuits.
Stand up, you're standing in the back, there you are.
Next up, I'd like to call Anna Demmons.
Oh, did you just get a shout out back there?
Anna is a senior at Petaluma High School. In her 4-year career as a student, she has enhanced her leadership skills and academic prowess through various activities. As a sophomore, she co-founded and co-ran the Political Awareness and Debate Club, Junior States of America, to bring nonpartisanship to her community and assisted in raising membership from 7 to 45 in 2 years. Within JSA, she and her fellow leaders have managed to send students to 3 political awareness and debate conventions a year, and last year helped run a successful campaign for the state position of Lieutenant Governor. Along with that, she actively participated in the programs Tomorrow Leaders Today and Link Group. She was also chosen as the Petaluma High delegate to California Girls State and participated in a state government simulation at Claremont McKenna College. Out of the 500 girls in the program, she was among the 30 to be elected as assemblywoman. Anna is incredibly involved in the PHS band program, serving as the tuba section leader in wind ensemble and the trombone section leader in varsity jazz band. Her involvement in band increased last year after she was voted band president. She now runs fundraising activities and band events along with her other responsibilities. On top of these activities, she juggles predominantly advanced placement and honors classes as well as 2 jobs. She works as a tutor for students from 6th to 11th and as a waitress and barista at the Riverfront Cafe. Anna is an active volunteer serving as a tutor for low-income students at Lincoln Elementary in Vallejo, where 93% of the students get free or reduced lunch. Anna both excels and enjoys the social sciences. In college, she plans to study history and political science.
Hi guys, I'm David Aragon and I'm award the student representative today at Puerto Villalobos.
All right, let me do it, let me do it.
Puerto Villalobos is a senior at Petaluma High School. He is also a 4-year associated student body leader. And in those years, he has been ASB vice president and captain of Sound and Spirit. He is also an active participant in the bilingual student ambassadors, functioning as a liaison between the Latino community, ASB, and administration. ASB has been a very big part of his life and has helped him meet new people and helped him create new memories both on and off campus. He does this for 2 periods. One of these periods is assigned as a class, but he does it for a second period because he has learned that he truly enjoys teaching juggling students. Struggling students, that's my bad. One of his 4th year's ASB teacher says, "It's been a pleasure working for Jorge for the past 3 years and 3.5 years. Oh my God, I'm sorry for it. He's incredibly involved in the acts as a great mentor for our ASB class and beyond. The teacher who tutors Miss Granger, or his school mom, aka, he says that I'm so thankful for the work Jorge does as my bilingual tutor. He helps the students with math and also gives tips for being better. more productive students. He interacts with all the students in a positive way and inspires them to be part of the PHS community. In addition to this, administrators such as Mr. Napoli, one of the Petaluma High's principals, say Jorge is a student who is determined to help make positive changes at PHS. He is an advocate for equality and seeks reasonable ways to encourage it at school. Jorge has a huge focus on helping others. This year he has volunteered to work as an aide for math and has reached out to me as the youth mentor. He's a motivated young man and a great future ahead of him. Jorge hopes to study electrical engineering this coming fall at UC Berkeley. And it doesn't say it on here, he said it for me too. He's also an incredible friend to me, my best friend.
Yeah, so I have David, my cousins right there, my little brothers, my sister, my uncle and aunt, and Miss Granger over there in the back hiding.
AKA.
And we're doing
All right, that is obviously the best part of the night, the most exciting, the most fun. Excuse me, oh, I'm sorry. So I'm going to keep you all, not take a break just for one more moment. We're so proud of everything that you guys do. It makes us feel like complete underachievers as we sit up here and listen to all the amazing things our students are doing. We ask the families to stand up because we know it really does take a village, and we really appreciate all the friendships and the families and all that you do to support your students to help get them here. Your names will go up on the fancy plaque that Ms. Thomas is going to straighten because it's driving me crazy real quick, because we really take pride in it. And you'll be able to come back for the years to come and show off your name, as Phoebe's always parading people through to show them her name. Yeah, oh, she's on there twice. Phoebe, we got to do it like 1 or 2 more times, right? Phoebe's up on the wall twice. So aim high. So why don't we have, before I break, why don't we really quick, why don't we do because I believe we have our reports, the student reports, the board. So, do we just have the junior highs?
It looks like it.
Just the junior highs tonight? All right, Kenilworth, why don't you come on up? Come back up.
Okay, so again, my name is Katie Hancock and I'm an 8th grade leadership student. We recently had our neon dance in October, which had excellent attendance, and leadership is preparing for our Winter Wonderland dance this Friday. Halloween was a great time at Kenilworth, with lots of students and teachers coming to school fully dressed out in their costumes. Right now we're in the midst of Holiday Spirit Week, with students coming to school in holiday clothes all week long. Our teachers recently had a vertical articulation meeting with the teachers at Casa Grande. The staff reviewed key data points for discussion and shared 6th through 12th program successes. The combined staffs believe that we are a 7th through 12th school that is located at 2 different sites. Girls basketball and cross country ended their seasons well, and now we are into boys basketball and girls volleyball. Our teams are showing strong performances, with our most recent triumph being our volleyball team coming in first at the North Bay Junior High Volleyball Invitational. The jazz band recently performed at the Festival of Christmas at the Petaluma Baptist Church. Our school bands are busy preparing for our winter concert tomorrow night. Kenilworth recently wrapped up with NaNoWriMo, where many of our 8th graders wrote some amazing novels. You can even view some of them on Amazon. The Paradise Fires put a damper on things, but our thoughts go out to all the families in the affected areas. We have been collecting gift cards for our district-wide gift card drive, which we've been promoting through our school newsletter. Last week, Kenilworth held 6th grade tours, where our leadership students acted as guides. The incoming students took tours of the campus and met many of our faculty members. It was great to see their excitement about the upcoming school year. Kenilworth also hosted our annual 6th grade preview night for incoming families. This night is mostly to ease the nerves of all the incoming families. The attendance was impressive with standing room only. The point of this night was to put the parents and students at ease, and it was great to see all the excitement about the upcoming school year. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And Petaluma Junior High.
I'm Pedro Morales.
I'm Miriam Norwitz. I'm an 8th grader.
Thank you for the opportunity to share what's been going on at PJHS since the last board report. We promise to make this brief.
For the last 5 years, PJHS has helped to raise awareness for breast cancer, those that we've lost and those that have been affected by this deadly disease. Every Friday in October was hashtag Think Pink Friday. You can tell by the picture that our Think Pink Fridays were a huge success.
PJHS's Makerspace is in its second year in our library. Each week, students can participate in different fun and challenging Makerspace projects. So far, they have included a Lego challenge, stop motion animation, using our virtual reality headsets, making slime, and programming our new microbits that we got from a Rotary grant earlier this year. For second semester, the Makerspace and Library will be hosting Tech Tuesdays after school for students that want to explore coding/programming, virtual reality, and robotics.
An enchanted forest has descended on PJHS's library this week as they host our annual book fair in partnership with Scholastic Books. Teachers were able to sign up to bring their classes. Students were able to browse and buy books before school, during lunch, or after school. They also could download the Scholastics app and buy books online.
As a part of PJHS' ongoing efforts to support our students and families in need, we kicked off our annual canned food drive on November 26th through tomorrow, December 12th. We will be donating food to 20 PJHS families that could use help this holiday season. Each family receives a box of non-perishable food and a turkey that has been generously donated by our community partners at Sprouts. Additionally, they will receive books from our book fair thanks to Scholastic Books.
Finally, all of our athletic teams have been doing well and focusing on individual and team improvement across the board. They've been building lifelong skills like teamwork, communication, and how to keep a positive attitude and outlook when games don't go their way.
From everyone at PJHS, we wish you all a very happy holiday season.
Thank you. Nicely done.
Thank you. I failed to also mention, great job for those that present, whether you're presenting your student of the months or you're presenting your activities for your school site. It takes a lot of courage to get out here and speak in front of the board, a room full of people, and we all comparatively do it ourselves. So we're really impressed with how well you all do. I know you would all love to stay to hear the budget revision that's coming up next. It's great stuff, but just riveting stuff. But just in case anyone has homework or something they need to do, we'll take a few minute recess. Happy holidays to those of you that are filing out. Be safe.
Congratulations, Miss Gemma.
Yell at him.
I think the 17. Of course, I think yes, right. And are you like ready?
Oh my God.
But if he has to come and go, can we stay down after? Do you have to so it's like really strong. We have a half an hour. So I told him and he can't do it. We're just trying to do right here. So, but right.
Can someone close the door?
It's all good. It's all good.
You actually got me. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
La Bougie.
All right, moving on. 7.3, Chris Thomas, Chief Business Official, Budget Revision number 1, and the first interim report for Petaluma City Schools, 2018-2019 fiscal year. Take it away.
Thank you to everyone who's still hanging out. We have a couple binders. No?
Sure.
We sell them for $5, just in case someone's interested. Okay.
Are you sure? You can have, you can have mine.
Okay, are we ready?
We are. Ready.
So I'm just going to quickly walk you through the binder tonight. I didn't do a PowerPoint. I just want to orient you to what's in the binder. So the very first agenda part talks about what first interim is. We report on the finances of the district 4 times a year. So we bring you the adopted budget in June. We bring you first interim, which is our finances as of October 31st every year. Second interim, we bring you in March as of January 31st. And then when we close the books in September, we're bringing you an audited actuals, how we closed. So we basically report 4 times a year. This is our first of our 2 interim reports. It kind of talks about, there's lots of information in this binder. I find it riveting. Not everyone does. If you go to the narrative and assumptions tab, I have a lot of information here on kind of what's going on in the economy, what's going on in the district, what are some of the challenges. I also have detailed budget assumptions. What assumptions did we use to adjust this budget? And in addition, we have multi-year projections, and the assumptions are also embedded in there. I've also provided a copy of the common message that the county offices across the state put out. It's developed through CSESA. That's in here. And then lastly, the last page in this tab is the School Services of California School Financial Projection Dartboard. So this basically tells us, here's what they're projecting the cost of living adjustments to be, here's what we're projecting lottery funding to be, et cetera. We use this when we do our multi-projections, okay? So I want to point one thing out in the narrative. If you look at page 2 of the narrative, the very last paragraph, the second to last paragraph, we're talking about enrollment projections, we're talking about how we're doing it from an enrollment perspective, but the last paragraph is really a new paragraph in which we're talking about one of our biggest challenges that we have real time right now, and that is computer replacement for staff and teachers and device replacement for our students. And, you know, one of the things that I know we have a committee, the Learning and Innovation Committee, that's meeting, really trying to get a process where we can actually assess what do we need to do long term. How do we address the issues from a device perspective, whether it's staff or students, both in the short term and in the long term? We know the district purchased a lot of devices in 2015. You know, we passed our bond in 2014, November. We purchased a lot of devices in 15, 16, 14, 15, 15, 16. And those devices are aging. So we need to come up with a plan and how do we do that type of replacement. So we're contemplating that a little bit here because that's something that for the next several months we really need to develop and articulate. What does that plan look like and how are we going to fund that plan?
I have a quick question.
But it starts with student need, teacher need. So it can't be someone like me sitting here crunching numbers and saying, here's what the dollars say. It really has to be from a boots on the ground. What do teachers need in the classroom? What do students need in the classroom? Here and then over here.
So, for example, and looking at what students need, when I went and talked to students at CASA, they want Chromebooks. They want to be able to type, which is really, you can do it on an iPad, but it's not that friendly. So if we were to replace their one-on-ones with Chromebooks, what would we do with the iPads?
Well, I think it's really, what you're talking about is how do we contemplate both now and in the future, what are the devices going to look like? And we know 5 years from now, Chromebooks may not exist, much like, and iPads right now. I mean, iPods, remember iPods? We used to have iPods, we don't have iPods anymore. Well, I still do, but you can't buy them anymore. So I really think it could vary by grade level. It could be the needs of K3 are different than 4-6 or different than 7-8 or different than 9-12. I don't know, but those are the conversations that I believe that we're exploring through this Learning and Innovation Committee. What are the student needs and are they different by grade level?
Let me add to that, because you're going to change all the time. I think one of the things that it took me a while to remember that some teachers reminded me of is we weren't necessarily providing, there was a lot of reasons to go with the technology and what technology we went with. Students have been typing papers as long as there have been word processors and typewriters at home. So it wasn't just to produce written word in the classroom. There was a lot of other things, other technology from a lot of elementary school stuff, all the reading and the math apps and things, and I think that was a big push for the iPads as well.
Yeah, iPads are great at the elementary level. I just don't know how functional they are once you get into high school.
Mike?
Well, a couple of things. One is, I think you have to approach this like you do building out a building. The bond can pay for the building, but you got to maintain it moving forward out of the general fund. That's just how that works. And then, like buildings, any school district structures, always remember FED, right? Which is functional, economical, and durable. So with technology and whatever devices you use, you kind of have to think like that. And like we did on the athletic fields, and something I'm sure we'll do on the, well, not we, but the next group will do on the music, you'll see what the users want. So whether it's students, teachers, faculty, staff, you need to take all that in and then hit it as how do I want to say it is, to the mark, which would be as functional, economic, and durable as you can get for the dollars you have, knowing that technology, unlike buildings, changes rapidly and it's going to continue to change ever more rapidly. I mean, it's one of those things where it's tough putting it back in the bottle, right? It's like smoke, it gets real amorphous. So you're just going to have to kind of find that sweet spot, and I think it's going to be a constant challenge. to have the latest, greatest, you know, iPhone 7, iPhone 10. I mean, when do you make that switch, right? So you.
So I just want to add, so when we get to the district goals later, I've got some information from David from the Learning Innovation Technology Committee that these two pieces kind of go together as far as plans.
When does that committee meet?
So they have meeting dates roughly once a month.
We can provide that to you.
Yeah, would you,
Yeah,
I'd like to.
We'll
attend.
provide the board with what the meeting dates are.
But,
So-
but in general, what Chris has tried to, hit home is most districts haven't put into place
Right.
a plan that is a
Sustainability.
meaningful refresh that's built in the budget, that's not based off of one-time funds or bond funds.
Right.
So this has been a challenge, so it's those two things working hand in hand. What is the next iteration for both students and staff, and then how do we budget that out? So that we can year to year be replacing a
Right.
portion of it.
That's
not
exactly
be
right. 'Cause Chris is
obsolete.
right, it could be a budget buster. It's a big number, always.
Well, I think it's going to come down to, again, if you look at the LCAP and the intent around the local control accountability plan, it was shifting the model from looking at the dollars and having dollars drive program. That's the old model, right? And the LCAP model is looking at data to assess student need, determine the student need, determine how to meet that student need,
Back into it.
and then say, what can we do to address the student need based on the data in an affordable way over 3 years? So I think that's the model that we're trying to shift to with this Learning and Innovation Committee, is really looking at the data to help drive recommendations that both for devices for staff, teachers and staff, as well as for students. And so
Right.
it makes it challenging for me to say, this is how much we need to put into the budget, until we know what the data and the recommendations are gonna look like, because the cost is very different depending on what the recommendation is, whether you're looking at devices for students or devices for staff. So the reason I put it in the narrative here is I wanted to highlight it as, look, this is a current challenge that in the long term and in the short term, we're gonna have to address. We have some bond money left to help out with some of the student refresh. We also have, we need our bandwidth to continue to be reviewed and evaluated and say, okay, now that we rolled out all this technology, how did that impact our bandwidth? How did that impact our ability to allow students and teachers to have access to the greater universe, right? So we have to look at that. We're exploring E-rate funding, for example. Dave Bashara and I are working on what does E-rate, how much of that can be funded through an E-rate. So we're not. E-rate is, it's kind of a mechanism that we can use that's kind of a 2-to-1, depending on. And it's really to help support technology. And so David, I know, has been actively working on that. He and I have been having multiple conversations about E-rate. How do we leverage E-rate dollars, our eligibility under E-rate, to help fund some of the infrastructure needs that we had, that the bond also funded, all of those bandwidth upgrades. So these are all things that we're exploring and we're looking at, and trying to identify what does the student need, what does the teacher need in the classroom, what is the cost of addressing that need, and things like our devices, are we gonna assume they're gonna last 2 years or 7 years? Those types of decisions change dramatically, ultimately the cost of ownership, right?
Right.
So those are the types of things that are being evaluated. So again, I wanted to bring it to your attention because I think there's gonna be more, stay tuned, there's gonna be more information coming out. But from a first interim perspective, it's important that we know that that's one of the risks to our budget that's sitting on the horizon for us. That's not contemplated. So when we look at the numbers, there's not necessarily money set aside to address this particular challenge. Again, we have a little bond money, we're looking at E-rate money, so we're looking at, are there other ways we can fund it without addressing or hitting the general fund? But ultimately, especially for the staff computers, staff devices are a cost of doing business that we need to contemplate. And we need to make sure our staff have the tools, adequate tools, to do their jobs effectively. Whether it's teachers in the classroom or having adequate tractors for our groundsmen. I mean, tools in general are important, so. Anyway,
So it'll be reflected in the 19-20 budget, like, whatever.
2020.
cost.
1920, hopefully, yes, because we're going to have to start doing some refreshes,
Right.
especially from the staff computer. We've got staff computers that are 12 years old.
Wow.
We've got to figure out a way to start doing computer replacement. But again, we don't wanna put the cart before the horse. We want to have, we wanna go slow. A former superintendent of mine, we love saying, especially through the recession, we wanna go slow to go fast. We wanna take our time and be thoughtful, and make sure we're having an engaging process with our staff, in order to identify and develop a solid plan that people are gonna feel good about, ultimately.
So essentially, that's it. Two critical things. Number one, a plan that our staff supports, and a plan to pay for it. A long-term plan to pay for it. Because what we should be doing, we are so large that what took place with the first issuance of the technology was really lofty. I'll use that word. We have to piecemeal. So whether that's every year, a fifth of our staff or a fifth of our students get new devices, or every 4 years, whatever that is, we do not have the ability to say, oh, okay, now everybody's gonna get something new.
No, it's gonna be a phase.
It's gotta be phased in, so we gotta, we
wanna avoid
that we have to be able to afford.
Yeah. And is some of that facilities money, Chris, just for the bandwidth upgrades and all that, or, I mean, that's not.
I think it depends on what it looks like. If bandwidth is equivalent to larger servers and larger equipment, not necessarily. But if it's the difference between whether we're using light fiber or dark fiber, which is the newest term being thrown about, that's more infrastructure stuff. That could be contemplated as part of modernization.
Got it.
But more importantly, it could be contemplated as part of this E-rate funding, where we may have to put up a third of it. E-rate funds 2/3. It's a federal program. And our bond, we can leverage our bond money for that third, so it's not impacting our general fund. And get 2/3 from the feds to ultimately help pay for it. So I've done this in past lives, it works very effectively. But again, it comes down to having a solid plan, and there's some very clear timelines that we have to meet if we want to be able to tap into that funding. So that's why David is on it and doing a good job with it, and Cliff, I'm sure, we're having conversations so that we make sure we're not missing a deadline.
Since the state mandated the technology and all the districts were on it, do they have any special programs at the state where like districts can maybe borrow from them at some preferred rate, or the collective power of all the school districts, going to, say, an Apple or computer device provider? To your knowledge, Chris, does the state have anything like that, where they try to help school districts out? Because it is a big kind of nebulous number.
The short answer is the state is really big on mandating programs and things
Without funding, no, don't do that.
So unfunded mandates are kind of a part of California's public finance as far as school districts.
I was actually hoping against hope.
There's lots of times there's local grants that we can tap into. There may even be some state grants, but does the state have a program where districts can go and sit, like the formerly known as the deferred maintenance program for buildings?
Right.
Even that went the way of the dodo under the LCFF.
Well, that's what I was wondering if
We
somebody.
don't even have that anymore.
Okay.
When the testing went all online, there were some initial grants from the state and reimbursements, because you were gonna have to presumably buy some more technology, but that was the very beginning, and that was very minimal. It's gone.
Well, it just means you have to pump up your reserves, just because it's a real unknown.
So anyway, I wanted to point this out. It's kind of a new paragraph I've added. We feel like it's an important thing that we're working on and that we want to be transparent about. So if you go to the comparative spreadsheet page, I know this is kind of the more real-time, what do the numbers show? So here's where we're getting into the actual numbers. So I'm gonna quickly walk you through mostly the unrestricted. I don't wanna get bogged down in restricted. The unrestricted is really where we have more flexibility in order to make discretionary decisions about things with what little discretion there is in a budget of this size. So if you look at the very first section, again, column A represents our adopted budget. Column B represents first interim and our first budget revision that you're taking action on hopefully tonight. And then C represents the variance. It's simply the variance to take B minus A, and that's the variance. The first section, this is broken down, the budget's always broken down into sections, types of revenues and types of expenditures. So the first section is our LCFF, our local control funding formula. So if you look at the total LCFF, that total at $67,805,000, That is the combined local control funding formula based on our projecting of ADA at this point. Okay, so remember, average daily attendance or ADA is primarily what we're funded on. We don't know what our final ADA is going to be until on or about the end of March, when we file P2 or period 2 ADA. So right now, we're just estimating it. When we're estimating, we're using solid assumptions to estimate that. So you can see it's up just under $1.2 million. And why is that? Well, we didn't know what our enrollment was gonna be when we adopted the budget. We're estimating the enrollment. We didn't know what all of the factors were gonna be in the LCFF. We have a better idea now that we have a state budget. Our enrollment is up. We were projecting 7,480 students. We're currently at 7,518, so we're up X number of students. And we're projecting ADA based on, now that we've seen the whites of their eyes and we know how many kids are coming up, we're using last year's P2 attendance to kind of project. So in other words, if a school has 400 kids and last year they had 95.5% attendance rate for that school, that's primarily what we're using to project ADA by school and by grade level in these, for these. And also remember, the base funding by grade span is different. So if we have more high school students show up and fewer 4th through 6th grade students, our revenue goes up on the natural, even if those are equal. So in other words, if one goes down 50 and one goes up 50, because 50 high school students more showed up, we get much more money for high school, then the revenue's gonna go up. So we get a different amount of money depending on the grade span.
Right.
So just because we went from 7480 to 7518, doesn't mean they showed up in all of the exact pots that we expected them to show up in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Why is the community redevelopment fund so, I was just gonna ask that same question.
It's a great question, and so, but at the end of the day, when we close the books, if we look back, this was closer to $1 million. So community redevelopment, remember, the community redevelopment agencies also went the way of the dodo about 6 years ago, that the voters of California decided to eliminate redevelopment agencies. And so there were successor agencies. I was on a successor board for San Rafael at one time. We met dispersing the assets of the formerly known as redevelopment agencies. There's residual redevelopment funds coming in, but they're all part of local property taxes. So if RDA goes down, state goes up. So there's no benefit either way to us, because the overall entitlement is $67,805,000. So you're gonna see lots of variances between all of these buckets. RDA is one of the ones that are hardest to predict because the residuals are very difficult to predict. Right now, the county of Sonoma told us that our RDA is gonna be about 274, and that's what I'm obligated to budget. I have to budget based on the estimates that they provide us for each one of these buckets. At the end of the day, it's probably gonna be over $1 million, because that's what we've seen in the last couple of years. And that's why I was projecting in the adopted budget to be higher, because ultimately, I think it will be. But the current J29B, which is the form Sonoma County and other counties give their districts, here's our current estimates based on the property tax rolls, right? So everybody got a property tax bill who owns a property in October. Those property tax rolls create the estimates for all of these different types of taxes, whether it's secured or unsecured or supplemental or in lieu taxes. That's what creates this. They give us that information and we budget it. But if property taxes are up overall, state aid goes down. If property taxes are down, state aid goes up. So it's a proportionate adjustment based on our overall entitlement. So
It's just estimate anyway.
it's just an estimate, exactly. So I know I just went over a lot of information, so please do feel free to continue.
Well, speaking of, I can ask you a quick question. Gary, have our new board members, they did their orientation, right? Did they do a budget thing already with Chris?
Some.
Do they have this?
Are you gonna go, I mean, cause this would have been a great night for them to come. I mean, are you gonna, cause this is a lot, but you're are you gonna sit down with them before
We've
they?
had some conversations on the adopted budget and on how we close the book, so that becomes the foundation for this information, so.
And so you'll sit down?
Yes, and this information became public Friday when we posted the agenda, so anybody who has access to the agenda online had access to all of this information.
Access is one thing, but access to you is a completely different thing. So
Yes.
I would be uncomfortable, I mean, this is gonna be up to you now, but I would be uncomfortable moving into the next budget, revision without sitting down with them and catching them up on this one.
So going through, I just want to highlight a couple other variances here. You can see mandated cost reimbursements went up $66,000. That's under that 8550. That went up because it was 168 of the adopted budget. Remember, we were using the May revise. It ended up being 184, so we increased it based on our projected 88. So one time, remember that's one time. This increase of $66,000 is one time.
So that's good news.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then our interest earnings have also increased because rates are going up, and what we're seeing in the first quarter of the year and what we saw when we analyzed last year is that we were able to increase our interest rates, our interest earnings. Other local revenues, it's mostly donations, whether it be athletics or general donations. We see that increase throughout the year. We're going to continue to see that. And remember, when this 166,000 goes up, there's expenditures associated with that. So when we look at those increases in expenditures, some of it's related to those local donations. Okay. Special education's contribution went down by 100,000. So overall,
It's gonna be okay.
no, that's a good thing. When contribution goes down, that's a good thing. Overall, our revenues
Our
changed.
contribution.
Our contribution.
Oh, okay.
to
I
special
thought you were
education.
thinking, oh, the state's not funding again.
They don't fund anything.
So let's go on to the other side of the house, which is expenditures. I'm gonna walk you through very quickly.
Are you sure?
Again, certificated salaries went up, so if we had more students, it stands to reason that we hired more teachers. So, for example, McDowell Elementary came in about 16 students stronger last I looked at it, and we actually added an FTE for that. We actually moved a parcel tax FTE to the unrestricted, and then we are redesigning an additional certificated position to support that school. So Casa Grande was up 3 or 4 sections, Petaluma High School was up 3 or 4 sections, I think Kenilworth was actually up a section or 2. So
That's great.
So yes, our revenues are up, but then our expenditures are up as well. Classified, most of this is actually staffing our current positions. We know we have custodial support needs, so if you look at that 2,200, we are reopening our pool. We have not had a pool open in about 3 years. We now have to add custodial support in order to take care of the pool. So the pool needs a part-time custodian, 4 hours a day, to clean, maintain, test, and make sure chemicals are added as needed. And that's a daily requirement. So part of what we're doing is we're looking at adding a full-time custodian, half-time floater, half-time pool dedicated custodian. So anyway. Looking under employee benefits, we've gone through and reconciled all of those adjustments. You'll see movement, for example, between STRS and PERS because some teachers are PERS members and some classified are STRS members. It just depends on what their original membership was and what their elections are. So we make adjustments once we know our final staffing. Materials and supplies, you'll see textbooks went down, for example, because we were able to move some of those costs over to Prop 20 lottery, which is a restricted lottery. As we posted our carryover, we were able to move some of those expenditures over. You'll see that materials and supplies went up significantly. That's primarily where those $166,000 worth of local donations was budgeted.
Okay.
But also, we posted a lot of carryover, about $350,000 worth of site carryover from last year to the 4,300 objects, as well as others, but primarily there.
Is materials and supplies just classroom use, materials and supplies?
Materials and supplies is very broad, it's all consumables, and it includes software licensing, it includes anything that's a consumable. It could include a chair. A chair, we might not think of as a consumable, but because it's less than $500, we have to treat it as such. So for example, McKinley added 3 FTE over the summer. We added 3 FTE in the budget because we were converting to K-6. We had to buy a lot of materials and supplies in order to take classrooms that were used for different purposes, like the Boys and Girls Club, and convert them into actual classroom space. So we bought a lot of desks and chairs for students over the summer, and that would be considered consumable. Okay, non-capital, that's primarily classroom, again, some classroom furniture, the more expensive, like we had to put cabinets into the portable at McKinley that didn't have any cabinets, formerly the Boys and Girls Club. But it also was things like non-capital copiers. So if we're buying a copier that's worth less than $5,000, it goes in this category. And you've actually taken action on some of those items. Going down, not a lot of significant changes here in the 5,000 area. To point a few out, like 5830 professional consulting services, I looked at those increases. There's some tech support and some admin mentor fees being supported by some local grants in the unrestricted budget. BITSA and WASP was bid for other fees, so we actually reconciled all of the beginning support teachers and the admin fees for both, or the BITSA fees for both the teachers and some of the admin. And then we have some mentors that we pay fees for as well, yes.
I see.
And WASP was big too.
5822 election costs, does that just go, you guys,
God, that's a lot of money.
have to, comes out, it just goes to the city, or does it go to the county?
The county. And we're still waiting on those final costs. So we estimate about $150,000. We looked back 2 years ago. The way election costs work is if you have an uncontested election, 3 seats, 3 people running, you don't pay any fees, or you pay the minimum $250 and whatnot. But if you have a contested election, then you participate along with all of the other ballot measures to cover the cost of the election. So we won't know exactly what that cost is until they finalize that and send us a bill.
Well, yeah, and they send us a bill as well, like let your new board members know, they might get a bill for more money that they owe.
Yeah.
So going down, field trips, of course, that's tied to local donations.
Why is that such a different number?
Because they're collecting money for field trips, and as they
Oh,
collect
as
it,
the
we budget it. And remember, field trips could include the cost of transportation to the field trip as well.
Buses.
Mhm. Going on to the next page, not a lot of change here. Our indirect, of course, we're collecting more indirect because we posted carryover for all our categorical programs. And then the most important thing here on this page, this is page 3, is excess of revenues over expense. We were estimating 433,000. That's where our revenues, when it's in the black, revenues are higher than expenditures. When it's in the red, that's called deficit spending, and that's the opposite. You can see our revenues are exceeding our expenditures as of this budget revision by just over $1 million. Okay?
Does this interim anticipate or contemplate any raises for certificated or classified?
There's nothing budgeted in here. Any raises come out of the available, that second to last number, which is available. But I also want to just remind the board and the community, there's $1.2 million in one-time money here. So remember, one-time revenues from the state, the mandated costs.
Right.
So if I back that out,
Versus deficit spending then?
then we're at least down to close to zero. Because remember, things like the $150,000 election can be considered one time.
Right.
So anyway, just to keep that in mind. When we get to the multi-year projections, I'll point out how we look.
We can't build programs or pay for people on one-time money. I mean, that's pretty clear, because there's no guarantee we're gonna get it next year.
But it's nice to have this clear of a number when you are continuing to negotiate.
Absolutely. Because remember, in the past, we showed deficit spending
Right.
even with one-time money.
Right.
So we're making significant
Progress.
progress.
Right?
And I also want to just say that the cuts that have been made over the last 2 years, remember, we cut $2 million out of the budget going into 17-18. And we cut another significant amount going into this year, just adjusting staffing. So we're seeing the progress from those cuts in this budget.
This district's in good shape here. I mean,
Yeah.
all things being relative around California, but in Northern California too, but you've done a great job.
Right
with
up the
this.
road from us.
Right, right. There's
Well,
some
and
districts
keep
that
in
are
mind,
very.
Does a good job.
there's retirement increases built in here too,
Yeah.
about $800 to $900,000.
Speaking of state mandates, right?
Unfunded. state
Unfunded.
mandate. So anyway, let's, I'm not gonna go too much through the restricted budget, other than to say we have some significant carryover, career tech ed money carryover, and that has to be spent by this June 30th, I think, yes. So there's about $700,000 in one-time money that's budgeted in the restricted budget that we moved over as carryover. But we also added the Department of Justice grant, and Dave, that was, I think, around $500,000.
The DOJ grant, total just over $1 million.
But this,
Each year, yeah.
it's a 2-year grant, so it's about $500,000 per year. So that Department of Justice grant is in here, and there's both revenues associated with it as well as cost increases because we had to budget those costs.
Right.
So when you see expenditures going up on the restricted side, especially in the area of 4,300, a lot of that is carryover.
Okay.
And a lot of that's gonna shift around between now and the next budget revision. So we think of the career tech ed money, there's about 780,000 sitting there in career tech ed. As the school sites, or comprehensive high schools in particular, decide, oh, we want that piece of equipment, or we want that, we have to analyze, is it below the 5,000 or above it? And that's what shifts it around in the budget. Does it need to be for training? Is it travel and conferences? What does it need to be? So anyway, but again, this side of the budget, strings attached, not much discretion. Okay? So I want to go on to all other funds. All of our other funds are here. They're all projected to be in the positive. Supplemental information tab. This is where there's a lot of good information. The first 2 pages is really our ADA charter versus non-charter being first. I'm not gonna go through this in detail, I just wanna point out what's here. We do a cash flow estimate, are we gonna maintain positive cash flow? And remember, the higher our ending fund balance or reserves are, the better cash flow we have for maintaining things like payroll. Then on page 121 through 126 are our multi-year projections. So back at that narrative and assumptions, we have a section on multi-year projections. So for these multi-year projections, in a nutshell, I took out one-time money. Remember that 1.2 million in state funding? So if you look at, I'm looking at page 121 for the following audience. Column A represents this current budget revision.
Right.
C represents next year, and E represents the year after that. So notice, if you look at other state revenue, see how it goes down by 46.51%?
Yep.
That's because I backed that 1.2 million out and then I added a 2% COLA. So those primarily adjustments happen in 1920, and then see how it goes up by 1.79 in the following year. I'm then assuming there's a COLA. I'm assuming flat enrollment, so no additional teachers, flat ADA stays the same the next 2 years. I'm backing out one-time expenditures associated with the one-time money, and if you look, we end up maintaining a positive revenues over expense for the next 2 years. But see how that drops down? It's no longer $1 million, it's now 383,000 if I'm reading that correctly. Because I backed out that one-time revenue.
Right.
Okay, I'm assuming step and column increases, et cetera. So this is not a huge amount of money, revenues over expense, because remember, economy starting to slow. We don't know what's gonna happen. I also wanna remind people we have a new governor coming in.
Right.
We don't know what that governor is gonna do or how he's gonna propose 2019-20. All of these are risks to our budget. If we're looking at a downturn, I'm watching the stock market.
That's not
I'm looking at the effects of some of the decisions we made at the federal level. So, but this is still positive. The fact is, we're not showing a deficit right now. That is a positive.
Right.
But I just wanna also caution everybody that there's still a lot of unknowns and risks to the economy.
Very clear.
What did you find out about the one-time funds? Is that, it's projected? So what you're
No, we
contemplating?
pulled out the one.
Right, for the future years, but for the current year, that amount,
Is
we
what
already
we're
know,
getting.
it's a set of, it's already determined.
We're getting $184 per ADA. That's in the state budget.
And that started in July 1 of 18, and will continue through
19.
19.
June
This year, it's for
No, it's just this year.
Just for
Well,
this.
she means
The-
January.
this school year.
It's a school year.
But here's the thing that's really interesting, I've been
July.
contemplating or thinking about the one-time money. We've had about 5 years of one-time
Yeah.
money, which starts to not feel like one-time money, right? So 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. But that's all been under Governor Brown.
Right.
Remember, new governor coming in, is he gonna have the same philosophy? Unrestricted or less restricted local control? Or is he going to go back to the way California used to do things under the former governors, former state, which is more categorical, economic impact aid, things like the SIP program? We don't know that. We have to wait and see what
That's early indication.
that January 10th budget's gonna look like,
Right.
his proposal for next year. It's gonna give us it's gonna give us an indication of where his philosophy is. So we'll wait and see.
Well, you hope for the best and plan for the
And
worst.
what about, like, didn't we get one-time curriculum money? We had got $1 million at some point?
We've been setting aside curriculum
Oh, we
funds.
just, okay.
from our contingency to buy curriculum. But no,
Does that still sit in this budget then?
if you look back under this comparative spreadsheets, page 3, the components of ending fund balance, you can see there's 700,000 being set aside right now
For curriculum.
Yes.
But we've used that for the ELA adoption.
Used to be more,
Yeah, it used to be 1.5.
1.5, then 1.1, then no, 700,000.
So we continue to use it.
We're backing it down as we use it. Okay, going on, if you look at page, I just want to point out the criteria and standards, page 135, page 1 of 26 pages. I'm gonna walk you through each line, no,
Each page,
each column,
slowly
yeah.
and thoroughly.
Ask questions as you go.
So there's a lot of good information here that we're disclosing, so I'm gonna leave it to your, what this does is it really says, okay, this is what you included, this is how we've seen in the past. Are you meeting normal variances? And in most cases, we have met normal variances. When I'm projecting ADA and they're comparing the average daily attendance rate I'm using versus how we've done in the past, it says, yes, you're on track, no, you're not on track. And if I'm not on track, I have to give you an explanation as to why. So that information's here. I'm gonna leave it to you to look at your leisure. I find it riveting, not everybody does. So,
Look at it.
that's our first interim report. I think,
It's very positive.
That was good, and
Really good, it was good.
thanks. Give this report, what, an A? A minus, A plus?
A plus.
the
Double A.
binder, I give it A plus.
Oh,
All right.
yeah, good job.
Fabulous.
Thank you, very
Amazing.
thorough and very positive. Yeah.
All right, moving on. Item 8, comments from the public, not including this one, because on an agenda item, seeing none. Item 9, report on activities and correspondence of school board members. No, he's on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
CSBA conference. Many of us went to that. Well, Joanna Pond went to a day. Maddie was there for a week. Most of your incoming board members. Gary was there. Mike made an evening appearance.
Just
Very
to buy dinner.
expensive.
Ellen, yeah, it cost Mike a little.
Yeah.
Thanks for dinner, Mike.
Yeah, and a tire or something.
And a tire or something. And Ellen and I went. It was a lot of fun. Okay, anything? Oh, I've got
I saw the Petaluma.
the Petaluma High School play,
Which
and
is amazing.
Trustee Lynch actually had something. I'm
Yeah, I
sorry,
got
almost
a
forgot to.
little letter, and it said, "Dear Sherry, Phoebe, and Mike, this is a love letter from a fellow board member. Thanks for putting me between Gary and Mike so they could poke me every once in a while to keep me awake so I would not shout out, 'We need to close the school,' so we keep those in attendance engaged. Your service to the community, to the district, to the staffs at our school, and the district office will long be remembered. You attended events, you visited schools, met with parents and students, worked with the county office, met with state officials, and worked with the city of Petaluma. You did everything you could to show our wonderful students that they were and always will be the focus of the work that is done by the board and by both districts. You gave up countless hours away from your jobs and your families. This is behind the scene type of dedication the general public and staff don't realize. Your time on the board was a labor of love for our great community and for our staff and our students. You did your job with class, dignity, humiliation, teamwork, with laughter, with smiles, and sometimes tears. You will long be remembered for your legacy as a board member for the wonderful shape that this district is in. You are leaving it in much better shape than when you first came aboard. You will not be forgotten by those who had the pleasure of your company. Don't be strangers on one of those lonely second or third Tuesdays of the month. We hope to see you in the audience. Remember, there's always comments from the public. Good job.
I would have put them at the end if I knew. That was very nice.
You wrote that yourself?
No, I didn't.
It's all true. And you will be greatly missed.
Yes.
You have no idea.
Oh, goodness gracious me alive. Moving on, item 10, approval, thank you. Mary.
Thank you.
Item 10, approval of consent agenda by consolidated motion.
So moved.
Second?
All right, before we vote on that, here we go. Dun, 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 dun. Our one speaker card. Mr. Shrips, come on down. Hold on, I'm gonna try to see it through the water in my glasses here. Woo. Take it away.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm John Shrips. I'm a retired teacher from Casa Grande High School 3 years ago. I left, but somehow I keep coming back doing things.
Good for you, yeah.
So anyway, the topic I'm here today about is number 11.2.4, joint use agreement approval between Point Grey Conservation Service and Petaluma City Schools for the native plant nursery. And of course, as you probably know, it's dear to my heart because I built the thing about 15 years ago, and I ran it for over 10 years at a profit, nicely, which I left some money behind for the school to use.
Thank you very much.
Which is really nice. And I'm really excited that Point Blue and the Straw Project are taking over the nursery and going to work on it and develop programs with it. And the benefits from the school district and to the students are going to be phenomenal. There's a huge ratio in favor of beneficent for the schools and the students compared to the benefits to the Straw Project. It's like, this is great. So I just want to promote that the MOU, I've read through it. It's a pretty nice MOU, and so it looks pretty good. So I really like it that only $50 for water is per month is actually a reasonable amount. That's a good price to pay for that recycled water that's being used. I want to tell you that the Straw folks I just talked tonight are very excited about stepping up and stepping in next month. They're ready to go, I think. And the students, I just talked to them, and here's some cards from them. Take these around. That I'm working with them right now on a project because I'm also doing work with Rotary, working at the Petaluma People Services Garden, rebuilding that up right now. And they're going to pay for the students of Casa Grande to come out and do some landscaping out at Petaluma People Services as a volunteer effort, so a win-win for that situation. So they're providing the money. They're going to get about 30 hours of actual student labor, and plants are going to go in the ground. That'll happen next month. Okay, so it's all pretty exciting that that's happening right now. The only disappointment I have is that it's taken so long, close to 2 years to make this agreement happen. And so in the meantime, there's a little bit of degradation that's occurred at the nursery over the short term. So to help pick that up, I know the MOU has one statement in it about an as-is, that the transfer is going to be as-is. The one favor I would ask you is to, if you could help direct the district to provide a little bit of help, not much, but a little bit of help in just getting it prepped so that the students, the horticulture class, not just the straw, but the horticulture class has been waiting 6 months to get onto the site. They can't go on to it because it's such a mess right now. It's got rat poop on it, it's got dog poop on it, it needs to be cleaned up.
Where's the horticulture cost coming from?
Casa Grande.
Oh, so it's the on-site?
It's on-site.
So the Casa Grande nursery is on site.
Yeah, no, but I didn't know if you're talking about an outside class.
Right, no,
So
the
they
class is on
haven't
site.
worked on it at all.
They haven't done anything with it. They're kind of waiting for this MOU to settle down to see who's in charge, who's going to pay for what.
Yeah.
And so everybody's been waiting for a long time. So anyway, it looks like it's up for grabs. It's going to be signed off hopefully tonight and joined in. So with that, there's two little bits that the district could do to help out. There's a pile of compost, which I left behind. And so it needs to be spread. It needs a little tractor to do that, but it's not on the nursery site. It's actually off on the actual school site. But that could be spread and make it a little cleaner. And the other thing is that the neighbors, people don't know who made the pile, but the neighbors piled up brush. They cut down the trees around the fences and they piled the brush on the school property. Again, not quite on the nursery site, just across the little road that's right there. And that needs to be cleaned up. Right now there's rats living in it. So we need to get the neighbors a little upset that this pile's been there for 5-6 years now. It was cleaned up. So a little bit of a wood chipper with 1 day of work, a little tractor, 1 day of work, less than that from the district, get that cleaned up and get the weeds kind of removed. If the district could do that, then I could help out. I'm volunteering my time to step in and help out with the straw project, get them going, to build it back up again, repair all the stuff that's gone wrong. And I'm also going to help out with the horticulture class and bring them out and actually teach them some nursery stuff there. Because that's what I like to do. So just getting a little bit of help up front, and just so it's not just just request that the district step in just for 1 day of actual work with a wood chipper and a tractor to help clean up. that would be so nice to help, the big help. And that would help the straw and the horticulture class get in there. By the end of January, we could actually be out there growing some plants. By the end of January, if that happens.
Are you talking about a directive for our maintenance staff to go out and do that? Or are you saying you would
Yes,
like some money in order to contract that?
If you have the staff and you have the equipment to do it, just a matter of directing them to just spend the day out there working on that, that would be helpful. I've made the request a couple times, but for whatever reasons, it hasn't happened. So getting that to happen would trigger other things to get the students out there could then actually start working and do their cleanup, which is sweeping and brushing and doing other things.
What would be your time frame? Optimally?
Optimally, next month.
In the month?
Within the month, by mid-January.
Chris?
Yeah.
In the month, yeah?
Yeah, Chris?
So I would say that, that's the first I've heard of it, so if the request has happened over X number of years, it's news to me. I know that Eric can attest the fact that when the school site reached out to us and said, hey, we need help with the Olay garden, our crews got out there and we helped with the Olay garden. So we're happy to come out. If there's a pile of whatever debris or something that needs to be spread around, just, Eric and I can talk about it offline and we can go out and take a look and see what we can do. We're happy to help make Casa Grande look amazing, as with all of our schools. But just so you know, it's the first I've heard that there was piles of debris around, so.
She doesn't like critters either, so you
Yes.
can guess she can get rid of critters. She's our critter gal. She doesn't like moles.
No, I like critters. I don't like,
She was naming the gophers at Mary
None of us
Collins.
are
Yeah, exactly. Don't get a comment about gophers and moles.
She loved the gophers.
so yes, we'll work with, principals, Backman to come out and take a look.
Yeah, my goal is by end of January to get it cleaned up to the point where I can actually get the class and bring them out and actually start doing something out there by end of January. This is my goal, and they'll do that.
It's the new semester starting.
Do the
Thank
new
you for all of your time.
Yes, thank you so
Well, I'm glad to help.
Lucky
This
to
is-
have
But I'd
you.
love to do this type of work.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Who's Mr. Backman, who's the teacher of that class?
Melissa Whitty.
Got it.
Yeah, and just a quick comment. Last year, you know, we were reaccredited, the WASC committee came.
Yeah.
One of their points of celebration or accolades to the school was the quote-unquote park-like atmosphere. And you know, this is part of a larger project. We're taking what I think has been sort of a detriment, which is the strange architecture and, you know, general nature of the campus, and we're turning it into a real asset. And the Olay garden has never looked better. I invite you all to come out. Our teacher,
Yeah.
Mrs. Whitty, distributed vegetables to everyone on staff this afternoon. All the handiwork of these kids who are studying horticulture, nursery and gardening. And to partner with Point Blue, which is a world-famous
Yeah.
renowned research organization, is a huge win-win. Not just for CASA, but for the whole district.
Sherry and I were there at open house. That campus looks amazing. I mean, and it's obviously looking even better, but I can't believe the contrast to when they first got on the board. As growing up, a guy that grew up here, I remember when it was just like adobe patches, you know. So it is a very attractive campus. So kudos to you and everybody who's taken an active interest in that campus.
Thank you.
And it's
And,
done.
Aesthetics.
Shout out to Chris, who worked really hard with Point Blue on the MOU. It's taken a while. I think we've got it right, and we're excited to move forward, so thank you.
Is that, I just have a curriculum question, Mr. DeGraw, is that a CTE pathway then? Will eventually
It is, yeah.
landscape nursery management?
Nice, exactly.
Yeah, Melissa's CTE credential teacher. She's
Nice.
at
Awesome.
a meeting.
Yeah, look at her tying the
Wait for the
curriculum.
plug there.
Right.
That's great though, just another pathway and jobs.
Phoebe
right?
tossing the softballs does a good job.
Right.
Oh my goodness. All those in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on. Thank you so much, you guys, for coming
Yeah.
tonight.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Oh, is that moving?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Are we being responsive? Are we being responsive?
Oh, we gotta move the consent.
Sure.
We're moving.
Is that a responsive thing that we just did?
What?
Are we being responsive?
Oh my God.
You'll have to ask.
We'll have to ask later. Item 11, action items, 11.1, Administrative Human Resources, 11.1.1, Credential Program Intern Agreement with Troy University, California Graduate School of Education, effective December 11th, 2018 through June 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second?
Questions, comments, issues, problems? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 11.1.2, district intern credential request for Arlette Chavez to teach special education classes RSP to Kenmore Junior High School for the 2018-2019 school year.
So moved.
Second. Was this what we talked about last time? Is she an intern?
She was on a PIP credential, and she passed the CSET, so now she can become an intern.
Okay, good, excellent.
All in favor?
Aye.
11.1.3, addendum approval of the contract with Assistant Superintendent of Education Services and Chief Business Official.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments, issues, problems? All in favor?
Aye.
11.1.4, amended classified employees auxiliary salary schedule.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
11.2, business services. 11.2.1, purchase orders.
So moved. Second.
Issues? Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
11.2.2, ratification of warrant register for warrants issued November 1st, 2019 through November 30th, 2019 by Petaluma City Schools.
Recused.
Out, 2 out. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion here, a second here. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 3 with 2 out. 11.2.3, agreement approval with Community Matters in Petaluma City Schools for alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, ATOD peer-to-peer prevention program at Petaluma High School and Casa Grande High School.
So moved.
Second. I have a question.
I didn't ask for any. Go ahead.
What, is that just Petaluma Healthcare District is sponsoring? It's a program with our students?
So Petaluma Healthcare District and the PEF combined for some grant dollars with one of our other community partners. Community Matters has had a variety of different programs in our school sites for more than a decade.
What's the idea of like peers, helping peers?
Community Matters is the founder of Safe School Ambassadors. So when we talk about Greg Phillips, he has the Safe School Ambassadors book. And he also travels internationally to talk about what Safe School Ambassadors is and how it supports campus climate. This program applies the same concept to peer use and prevention around substances. So the Community Matters Safe School Ambassadors is kids see more than the rest of the staff see. They can prevent more. So they're trained in terms of how to do interventions with their staff if there's bullying, if there's taunting, if there's name calling. And so this same concept could apply when students are tempted to use a vape device on campus, when they're talking about using drugs on campus. And so peers see and hear way more than staff do. And if we have another level of intervention, it could prevent some use.
How do you identify those
So
students who
staff,
participate in the training?
just like the Safe School Ambassadors program, staff are asked to identify students from a variety of different groups that are on campus.
And do those students get training?
Correct, there's a 2-day training.
Oh,
Students and staff get a 2-day training, and then there's ongoing staff support of the students throughout the year.
Cool.
excellent, that's great. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
11.2.4, joint use agreement approval with Point Blue. So I'm sorry, I thought this was on the consent. Someone asked me earlier if it was okay to talk about it on the consent, so I just took their word. 11.2.4, joint use agreement approval of Point Blue Conservation Science and Petaluma City School for Native Plant Nursery at Casa Grande High School.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
11.2.5, approval of Petaluma City Elementary Joint and High School District Budget Revision Number 1 and the first interim report for 2018-2019.
So moved.
Second.
We are not asking you. All in favor?
Aye.
11.2.6, Resolution 1819-13, the Board of Education, the Petaluma City Elementary and Petaluma Joint and High School Districts of the County of Sonoma, City of California, regarding accounting of developer fees for the 2017-2018 fiscal year in the following funder account: Capital Facilities Fund, Government Code Section 66001D and 66006B.
So moved.
Second.
Our annual accounting of developer fees, we're obligated to do this. We're disclosing how we've spent the funds and how we intend to spend them in the future if there's an unspent balance, which there is. So, and mostly we use them for portables, and we may consider using them to replace the portable at Petaluma High School with a modular building to add classrooms, because we know we have potential for growth. And developer fees is specifically associated with growth. You have to show a nexus to growth.
Fabulous. All in favor?
Aye.
11.2.7, approval of Form J-13A for the request for allowance of attendance days and annual instructional minutes due to poor air quality from the Butte County Fire, Petaluma Joint Union High School District closure on November 9th, 2019, November 13th, 2018, did I say 19? 2018, both times, and November 16th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
11.2.8, approval of Form J-13A for the request of allowance of attendance days and annual instructional minutes to report air quality for the Butte County Fire for Petaluma City Elementary School District closure on November 9th, November 13th, and November 16th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Who's got it? Ellen? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 11.2.9, approval of Form J-13A for the request for allowance of attendance days and annual instructional minutes to report air quality for the Butte County Fire for Gateway College and Charter Academy closure on November 9th, November 13th, and November 16th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
We give it to Frank. Oh, we're gonna give it to Freddie.
Give it to Phoebe.
All in favor?
Aye.
11.2.10, approval of Form J-13A- for the request for allowance of attendance days and annual instructional minutes to report air quality for the Butte County Fire for Pine Grove Elementary Charter School closure on November 9th, November 13th, November 16th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
See how fast I can get those last two. 11.2.11, approval of Form J-13A for the request of allowance of attendance days and annual instructional minutes to report air quality for the Butte County Fire for Mary Collins at Cherry Valley Charter School closure on November 9th, November 13th, November 16th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
11.2.12, approval of, oh my God. Is this how you feel when you're doing the budget for every single one of our, mine's a little quicker though, right?
Couldn't do the same blurb and then just
Go
five
for the
schools, all
following.
five, it has to be
I
one
probably
night.
could have just, I
It
probably.
doesn't have to be one.
Approval of Form J-13A for the request of allowance of attendance days and annual instructional minutes to report air quality to Butte County Fire for Petaluma Accelerated Charter School closure on November 9th, November 13th, and 16th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Last one, 11.2.13, approval of Form J-13A for the request for allowance of attendance days and annual instructional minutes to report air quality from Butte County Fire for Sixth Grade Academy Charter School closure on November 9th, November 13th, November 16th, 2018. Second, someone?
Second.
Phoebe's got it. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 12, discussion and information only. 12.1, administration and human resources. 12.1.1, the superintendent and cabinet to discuss district goals and update on progress. How did I not see that coming?
Yeah.
Oh,
They're not doing that.
Pop that bad boy up there.
Huh?
No, sorry.
I thought you were there when it happened. Huh? Actually, this will probably might have been a good one to put over because.
I am gonna ask.
Because we know the
Well,
goals.
we've done it.
Yeah, there's a lot.
We kind of know this.
I don't need to go.
stuff.
All in five.
So I'm telling our folks, we're gonna do this in 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Well,
Oh my God, we're gonna take a 2-minute recess. Gary, I'm serious. Brace you up.
Starting. What grade is it? I could do that. And here. Are they like in the principal? Yeah, they are, but. Yeah. Did you just send her an email or something? Yeah, and I said, do we have that? So, I'm thinking.
So hopefully we'll fix it as we go.
Well, and I'd say we want to have to put that. I make a big effort. We want to have a next grandkids. Yeah. Yeah. So, what's the top? So I'd rather send.
Right at the store.
Thank you. And so I said, what is name? Making sure his name. So I said, what do you do? So he chose to make friends with them.
His wife's not bad.
He's very social.
Hi, Erin.
So he's doing.
Take the high road.
Very good.
the side, just put the slide on. Turn it this way a little bit so I can access.
Now you go in, you get comfortable.
Yeah.
All right, we're back in. Let's go.
Okay. So we're just kind of going over updates on goals. We've talked about these before, but the big ticket items for this year are implementing the phase 1 jet review, continued growth and improvement in our at-risk metrics, particularly related to discipline, suspension, attendance, site administrator PD, district to school and interdepartmental communications, board policies, protocols, district operations, and phase 3 modernization, which we're kind of going into, and then a homework policy review, which came from an advisory group last year. So moving on, Cliff's going to talk a little bit about the phase 1 jet review.
Okay, so David apologizes that he couldn't be here. He left me with some information. So the Learning Innovation Technology Committee has been, that was one of the recommendations that came out of the jet review.
Did you take my binder?
So they've been meeting monthly, and they even had a subcommittee specific to talk about devices in particular. But he's planning on coming to the second board meeting in January to do an update on their planning. So the original jet review under the prior Director of Technology had a timeline more geared towards the fall, what we would come and present, but with the changes and everything, we pushed that out to January, so he'll be coming in January with that. So some of the things they're doing is they're going to be obsoleting some of the older iPads. So we have some second generation, some third, some fourth, which are now 6 years old or more. And most of them, the iOS is now well beyond what they can be updated to. So right now we're at 12.1. The older ones stopped being serviced at 10.3.3. So, we were talking about this, right, as far as how long can these devices last. Part of the issue is when their iOS is developed beyond a certain capacity, the devices become obsolete. So he has been keeping a stock on hand of iPads, which we didn't really have before in the past. We would break one, send one in, and then we'd have that gap of what do we do, and we try to scramble for an extra one. But now we have some in reserve ready for those needs. And so with the Learning Innovation Technology Committee, they've been going over the jet review, talking about devices in general, talking about some of those same needs that came up from the jet review as far as not only students, like you said, the keyboard, but that's come from secondary teachers as well. And then what you kind of all alluded to earlier in discussing that item, talking about the budget, was the total cost of ownership. So that's not just the initial cost, that's potential warranty, resale value, cost of repair, all of those things get added in. So iPads, for example, they still have resale value. Chromebooks less so.
Yeah, I understand.
So,
They're also a lot cheaper.
but that doesn't necessarily mean we won't have a mix, right? We currently do have a mix. We've got Chromebook carts that are at certain sites, or Chromebooks that we deploy to different sites, especially when we're testing. So Chris actually pointed this out recently. We technically have more than a one-to-one device because we also have these extra cards and these extra devices. But I'm going on too long, but we'll come back with all these things.
So the big issue on these is that people felt very strongly about was let's get our connectivity up and running exactly the way that it should be, because there's still issues related to that. And we're really trying to get the committee to really dig into everything from the refresh to what PD opportunities should we be offering. Filter access was the #1 issue that we heard, and we'll be coming back with some recommendations for the board on that.
I have a question about professional development. Is that going to be teacher led? I mean, are you gonna ask the teachers what they feel they need for professional development, or are we just gonna tell them, this is what we're giving you?
So this will look different. This won't necessarily be a PD days, only thing.
Okay.
Some of the models that they recommended in the JET review were districts where there's kind of, similar to how students with Common Sense Media earn digital badges and, things like that. Where teachers, self-paced, some online things. They give us a few districts to go look at. So it'll be definitely by need. So wherever they're at, we're gonna try to meet them there. There will be some that will be self-paced. Obviously, when we do PD days, we're gonna try to offer where people are at, and we have people at different levels. But yeah,
Was
clearly,
the Petaluma Pioneers back?
what's that?
Do you remember the Petaluma Pioneers?
Well, we technically have those, they're not called that now.
They have a new name.
I don't even know if we have a name for them, but
It used to be an on-site teacher, right?
Yeah.
They told us, I thought they were called the Petaluma.
We have a
Pioneers.
stipend.
And they got a stipend, right?
It was a great plan, it didn't have a ongoing funding source. It was done with one-time money.
I get really concerned about I've sat on so much professional development that was top down.
I don't think we do anything anymore that's top down.
That's good to hear.
I mean, unless somebody can tell me otherwise, it's all committee. Committees determining, it doesn't do any good.
and that's one of the reasons why the self-paced type PD is great for technology.
Absolutely.
Even when we do have PD days, even when we get staff input, we offer a few sessions. There's always gonna be teachers who that's either under their skill set or over their skill set. So it's hard on a PD day to meet where everyone is by doing
Right.
2 or 3 sessions, workshops.
Yeah.
So that self-paced thing is a big piece as well.
Thank you.
And a piece of that, bring your own device, I think needs to be considered.
It's part of the discussion.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
A lot of kids do it, right?
Okay. Second item was continued growth and improvement at-risk metrics. Dave's going to talk a little bit about some of the focus areas. Our data looks pretty good, and we want to keep it there. And it's not just going to stay there by holding steady, because we are now obviously being inundated with a lot of other social pressures. Vaping and the access to marijuana is just skyrocketing issues at our school sites, and it's happening across Sonoma County at least, because we're all really struggling to deal with how do you handle just such free access. So with that.
For the big ticket items for us are out of school suspensions, students identified as truants, students that drop out, and then our graduation rate. So we're consistently looking at improving those on an annual basis, as Gary has mentioned. We've kind of flatlined over the last 5 years. We've hit about 91% graduation rate in a 4-year cohort, and we're staying there. We've hit about a 7.5% to 8% suspension rate. Our truancy rate is right at about 9%, and we're flatlining. One of the things that we see that would help us into that next step is professional development around ACEs and trauma-informed care. So we're actually in the 3rd year of doing that type of presentation and training for staff. We're to the point right now where our discussions with staff at sites this year is talking about the actual interventions that they're doing in their classroom environment and how they mirror what happens on the campus. So we're giving teachers an opportunity to talk about specific students, specific groups that are challenging to them, specific case management. They are using our MFTs, our marriage family therapists, our behavior specialists, and other support to come back after those initial trainings and do follow-up training with those staff to talk about specific challenges that we have. One of the things that is another challenge for us, in addition to the things that Gary mentioned, is our TK and kindergarten students dealing with the separation anxiety. That is a new thing for us. And we don't know really what to attribute that to at this point. We're finding that lots of our young students are having issues with self-regulation skills. It's just the ability to be able to be away from their parents for a prolonged period of time. And so we're working with our school sites and our staff specifically around that issue as well, so we can identify some of the antecedents and then give them some strategies to prevent those things from happening on campus.
Site administrator professional development, we're spending a lot of time on this, particularly around areas of assessment. Now that we have a new data engine, Illuminate, that administration knows how to access all the tools that are related to that. Matthew's doing some work with instructional leadership training, working with them.
Sure. Yeah, I've been. So besides we've been hosting a sort of a monthly meeting for our new administrators to come in and work with them. Work with them directly. I did a presentation on supervision and evaluation. I've been going out to every single school site, meeting with the principal, talking through the teachers that they're evaluating this year. I've led some of our new administrators and administrators who have been around for a while who are interested in doing some model evaluation, something that I would have loved to have done as an administrator myself, kind of going through and picking out a teacher who's interested in doing it with us, and kind of co-leading that evaluation process and doing it as a team. So,
Matthew, do we just use one evaluation instrument, or is there options for tenured teachers?
so we have one tool that we're using that was developed by the professional development committee, which is composed of teachers, administrators, staff.
We've spent years on that.
Yes.
Went to Davis,
Exactly.
no big deal.
Yes.
The one piece that's not on here is
Charlotte Danielson.
Yeah, the one piece that's not on here is we're also providing ongoing training related to, and I'll pass it to you, to uniform complaint procedures as well as Title IX, making sure that everybody's up to date on that at the school sites. That's coming up.
So the piece I wanted to add is, when I come and I share district results, right, CAP results, dashboard results, you're seeing an average and overall for the district. What you're missing is there are trends at sites. We're growing, we're not growing, we're declining. It just depends on the area of the school. So what we really are aiming to do with our principals is do that work with them. We want them to be on top of all of their data, know where their strengths are, know where their weaknesses are. When we build their SIPSAs, they should be addressing those needs and those gaps. We also have, the dashboard now that we've had it for 2 years, it has some measurements where they're pointing us, they're mandating in certain cases, hey, you gotta work on this over here. So it's really engaging them in that same work. They should know their school, they should know their students by name and by need. So it's not just, when it's a district figures, there are things and trends that can kind of be hidden in that data. So we want them to know. So, we've been meeting the principals individually as well, looking at their data. Where are the gaps? Do they realize where those gaps are? Part of that is using Illuminate to do that, but this shouldn't just be a district office board, piece of information that principals should know, should be using it to develop supports of the schools.
Next area is district to school interdepartment communication. We really have tried to shift a focus towards one of the things going into this year was that we had lots of discussions about trying to get out of using email as a primary means of communication and actually going out to sites, talking to folks, making phone calls. It was something Matthew and I talked a lot about his position as he was coming in, is that we were going to be more active and present out at the school sites. But in addition to that, really, how are we working in our departments, interdepartment? And Chris and Matthew have done quite a bit of work related to ensuring that business and human resources are really working hand in hand. So I'll let them chat just briefly to that, speak to that.
Well, I can tell you that every organization I've worked for, business and human resources, there's a complete interdependence, but there's also an automatic tension between the two departments because you're coming at a problem from two very different lenses or through two very different lenses. And I don't mean Matthew and I or Linda Shaley and I mean our staffs generally. We're trying to accomplish the same thing, but we're trying to do it in different ways, and we have different needs that we're trying to meet. They're trying to hire people and get them placed, and we're trying to get people paid. And so having clear lines of delineation, who's responsible for what, and really having more open dialogue and communication. And really, I think it's about providing our teams, both of our teams, the opportunity to get together and to talk about the challenges so that they understand it from each other's perspective, that payroll understands why HR needs certain things in certain ways, and HR understands why payroll needs certain things in certain ways, and the timelines and everything else. So it's really, I think, providing a venue and a forum for our teams to get together. I think we do really good jobs in our departments having our own staff meetings and having our staff talk amongst themselves, but really getting out of the whole silo effect and having those interdepartmental staff meetings where we're really trying to understand how we can work together at a higher level and really take our teams working together it's the whole, they talk about school system versus system of schools. It's the same thing in a district office. It's a district office system or a system of departments. We want a district office system where we're all working seamlessly together. So I mean, that's what, and Matthew, having him come in has been great, and really being able to have an open dialogue at our level, but then also encouraging our staff. And we've had great opportunities because we've had STIRS audits and we've had all sorts of audits this year that give our teams opportunities, even more opportunities to work together.
Wow. I think it's just, again, just to echo what Chris said, building on those systems between HR and business, and a lot of open communication and a lot of conversations that we've had. It's been, yeah.
Well, and a real natural thing that happens in any district office, I'm sure at school sites as well, is that a lot of times people get into positions and based on their strengths, they naturally take on other duties. Or they move between departments. I used to work in this department now, and so I kept some stuff. So it's also really drawing the lines of what's appropriate to be on this desk versus that desk, and making sure our internal controls are in place. So I think there's a lot of that going on too.
The other piece related to it is really opening up communication opportunities across in the entire district office. For example, we're following a slightly different process for how we go through board agendas, and now our staffs come in to those meetings as well. And invariably, what happens in that process is that when others are there, they will see something and realize that even though it might seem like it's just related to ed services, it has implications for other departments. So without them being there, they wouldn't necessarily be able to point that out. And so it's leading to a better product, I think, at the end of the day.
That's great.
Next item is board policies, protocols, district operations. You've seen a myriad of things. You see a myriad of things today that you approved related to updates on board policies. We will be continuing that throughout the year. We've got a whole list, each department, of more that need to get updated. We're focusing on the ones that are mandated first, and then going to the ones that are more voluntary. So that will continue. The other thing is that and this has really been important for our development this year, but moving forward, is as staff leaves, so as Sue Merrill leaves, and as we're anticipating others have left, and we lost our ed services assistant last year, in absence of a playbook, in absence of a department manual, what are you leaving somebody? And so those didn't exist. And so each department is working hard to make sure that they have down the playbook. What are the things that folks need to know, so that when Michelle walks into the position, she's not walking in cold. And also, we're trying to be a lot more strategic about pairing up the person that's leaving with the person that's coming in with a little more time. If you can give them time and something to work off of, the transition's pretty seamless, and it's been in this case. So we'll continue to update our manuals.
That's great.
We are in phase 3 of modernization. There's going to be a number of things that moving forward we're going to have to deal with.
So we are in the process of evaluating responses to our request for qualifications for architectural firms to start working with. So we had 4 architectural firms respond to our request for qualifications. We got their called SOQ, Statement of Qualifications. We're evaluating those, and we're hoping at the first board meeting in January to bring back 1 or 2 architectural firms that we'd like to work with on our ongoing modernization projects that we're really gonna gear up for, including things like at Petaluma High School, where we need to replace that old portable with a more permanent structure that gives us more classrooms, so that we look toward growth, working with our elementary school sites on some of their needs, including whether it's window replacement or lighting replacement, or looking at the multi-use in the kitchen. All of our facilities need to be evaluated. And then more importantly, or just as importantly, we have the opportunity to continue to evaluate the projects identified in our bond project list, things like the Performing Arts Theater, specifically at Casa Grande, and how do we move forward with that. So bringing on architects helps start the foundation of modernization conversations. And it could even segue into some of the IT or the technology improvements that we need to have as well. So we're hoping to bring those contracts to you in January, and that's really gonna start the process. And then starting to develop site committees at the school sites to say, have an opportunity for the architects to meet with the school sites and say, what are their needs, and then start prioritizing.
Next one.
Last one right here.
Last one. This has been an ongoing issue that has come to the board, has come to Superintendent's Council, and a frustration over homework policy. And so, at direction of the board, we thought this is our year to take a look at it and see if there's anything policy-wise that needs to be recommended. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but what are the issues related to this? And it falls into lovely Mr. DeGraw's lap.
And where is the existing policy? I mean, where is it on the website? Or
Yeah,
is it-
yeah.
okay.
It's under grades and evaluation.
Grades and evaluation.
So just what, you know.
So we've been doing some homework on this.
But
So haven't yet convened a meeting, we will start next semester, but gathered some examples from some districts, notably Davis, most recently did a big overhaul on this with their community and some staff, so that's kind of the template we're gonna look at. Our board policy around grading needs some work anyways, but we're not necessarily gonna take on that whole beast with this, we're just specifically looking at that homework piece. So just as far as, should we entertain some guidelines, per grade level, by subject and secondary or not? There are districts that have done that, not necessarily put a limitation, but kind of a general expectation. But that definitely comes up from time to time, depending on, at what age, my own children, certain grades, the schools we've been at, I think my daughter in first grade had no homework at all with the school policy, which was great for her, but it was great for her at home, but then the older daughter was
It's so subjective. And some parents want more homework, you hear them complain, there's not enough homework, and then some parents think there's too much, I don't know how you, that's kind of.
Well, that's part of it.
And you may not be able to, but,
Yeah.
the fact that, one of the things that's missing in our culture is parents, the parent voice. And so we need to get teachers and parents and administrators together and talk about this. And maybe there's something that we can do, maybe not. But this comes up constantly. It's like, it's up there. Just as the filter was the number one thing for technology, this is the number one issue that comes, the number one complaint we get, frustration from families. And so we could either continue just to blow it off, or at least try to seek to understand what's going on. And we don't even know the answer to the concern. What are the concerns? So who knows what will come from it, but this is part of shared decision making, and our parents are part of the making a decision. So
Mike's got a question.
Does A through G weigh in on that? Do they have any homework recommendations, requirements, minimums to your knowledge?
No, but I mean, advanced courses like AP typically require more rigorous load, so, and that's a piece of it, right? It is.
Right, but I was just wondering if the university looking down, when they sanction those classes, if that's something they put on
No.
as a requirement.
It
No,
isn't.
they don't get that specific.
Okay.
Sorry, not at the moment.
They want more of an overview. When you write something to be approved, A through G, it's more of an overview, not.
All right, moving on. Great job, gang. It was
Longest
awesome.
10 minutes.
That was awesome. The longest 10 minutes. All right, all of these are discussion information only items. I'm gonna just ask if any board member has any comment, or if anyone in the cabinet wants to discuss any of the following. 12.1.2, the amended administrative regulation, the sexual harassment policy.
That's coming back in January, you assume?
It looks really good,
No.
what's there right now.
No.
These are legal updates?
These
I
are
have a couple
ARs.
questions
Just
for
ARs,
Dana.
okay, good.
All right, these are just the ARs to go with it.
Good.
Right, just the
These are
routine
all-
updates,
Oh my
right?
God, this is gonna be the first time in history they're gonna have
These
comments.
are all
Looked at my attorney's
Yeah,
CSBA.
right, like we did, okay.
12.1.3, the complaint procedures. 12.1.4,
Same.
educational services. 12.2.1, first reading of the personal finance course.
Is Chris teaching that?
12.2.2,
Personal.
success 102. 12.2.3, yearbook design and publication. Maybe that's right up your alley. 12.2.4, medical technology. 12.3, student services. 12.3.9, amended. Do you notice I'm not looking? Amended administrative regulation, the sexual harassment for students policy. Okay. Gary, future business? Yes, you probably want to talk about that in the future. No, we don't, because we don't care.
Right.
You know what you find out.
All right, we're gonna report out of closed session. We did have 4 student discipline cases. Let's see, this is my last time. You ready? Are you ready? You gotta, when you gotta start like reading it, it's like fast. Okay, are you ready? All right.
I'm listening.
All right, case number 11, the case has been presented to the board. The student did commit an expellable act as defined by the California Education Code. The recommended motion for the board to expel and to suspend the site discipline team's recommendation for expulsion in accordance with board policy and to allow continued enrollment in a district-operated school under mandated conditions. The student's suspended expulsion status will be in effect for the fall and spring semesters of 2018-2019 school year. Conditions above such a review, the evidence of positive attendance, satisfactory behavior, substance abuse counseling program and screenings, community service, and appropriate academic performance.
So,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Case number 13. Case number 13. A case has been presented to the board that the student did commit an expellable act as defined by the California Education Code. The recommended motion is for the board to expel and to suspend the site discipline team's recommendation for expulsion in accordance with board policy and to allow continued enrollment in district-operated school under any conditions. The student's suspended expulsion status will be in effect for the fall and spring semesters of 2017-2018 school year. Conditions above such a review with evidence of positive attendance, satisfactory behavior, life skills counseling program, community service, and appropriate academic performance.
so moved.
Second.
I'll give it to Frank. All in favor?
Aye.
Case number 15. A case has been presented to the board that the student did commit an expellable act as defined by the California Education Code. The recommended motion for the board to expel and to suspend the site discipline team recommendation for expulsion in accordance with board policy and to allow continued enrollment in district-operated school under many conditions. The student's suspended expulsion status will be in effect for the fall and spring semesters of the 2018-19 school year. Conditions above subject to review with evidence of positive attendance, satisfactory behavior, life skills, and/or anger management counseling program, community service, and appropriate academic performance.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Case number 16. A case has been presented to the board that the student did commit an expellable act as defined by the California Education Code. The recommended motion for the board to expel and suspend the site discipline team's recommendation for expulsion in accordance with board policy and to allow continued enrollment in district-operated school under mandated conditions. The student's suspended expulsion status will be in effect for the fall and spring semesters of 2018-2019 school year. Conditions above, subject to review with evidence of positive attendance, satisfactory behavior, substance abuse counseling program and screenings, community service, and appropriate academic performance.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Get that talent.
Wait, let's go back. Let's let Phoebe move and Frank second. Well, Phoebe, one final motion, Phoebe.
So moved.
There you go, for the live out.
How much you give that on,
Mike,
how much you give that on
second.
second?
All second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And for the last time,
Oh.
it's been a good 8 years.
Dog,
Meeting
better
adjourned,
dog.
meeting adjourned, woo! You too.
Dun, 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 dun. Go for it.
I'm gonna go right in. Go before I go.
You know we're going, right?
Department A, but you don't even know that it's that when you were
Yeah, second house from fifth. Yeah.
Just the door we opened.
Okay.
White Victoria.
Listen, no, just follow.